those people away from the devil's obstacles. I want to tell you a little story from when I was a kid. My brother couldn't be here tonight, and I wish he was, because it's fun to embarrass your brother sometime. But when I was a kid, every now and then my uncle would babysit us, and he loves to tell this story because well, I guess it's funny to him. But every time he would babysit us, as soon as my dad would leave to go to work, I would take off out the door and just run down the street as far as I could, and I would disappear for the whole day. I wouldn't come home, and my uncle would be looking for me. I was about 6 years old, and my uncle didn't have any kids, okay? So this was his experience with dealing with kids. I would take off and he wouldn't be able to find me. But then what would happen is my little brother, who at the time was about 2, he would follow me out the door. Anywhere I would go, he would go. And so my uncle would run around the neighborhood trying to catch me, but he would not try to catch me first. He would go after my brother because he was the little one. I mean, you can't have a 2-year-old running around in his diaper around the neighborhood. So he would catch my brother, knowing that at least I could find my way back. Well, finally, my uncle figured out that catching my brother wasn't the key. It was catching me, because anywhere I went, my brother went. And so one day, he outsmarted me, and he caught me, and then my brother followed back home. And our life is kind of like that, in that the devil knows that you have a plan, that your life is supposed to impact somebody else's life. Somebody is going to follow in what you do, and someone's going to be blessed by you. And so if he can get a hold of you and stop you from doing what you're supposed to do, it's a whole ripple effect. He can stop the next person from doing what they're supposed to be doing, because you're never going to get the chance to minister to them because they're looking at you. Or maybe they haven't met you yet, and now they're never going to have that interaction with you like they should. But luckily, we serve a God that's bigger than the devil, and God knows that too. God knows what your calling is, and so he knows by pursuing you, by pulling you in and constantly trying to speak to you, you have to be willing to listen, that if he can get a hold of you, look at the ripple effect. Look what's going to follow. Look who can be touched by your life and your ministry. And when I say ministry, I don't necessarily mean, being a preacher or working for a church, but your life should be a living ministry for the Lord. Before I close, I want to tell you a little story. How many of you have ever seen the movie The Lorax that just came out this year? Yeah, the Dr. Seuss movie. Okay, it actually comes out on video on Tuesday. So if you have not seen it, and I'm not paid by Dr. Seuss, if you haven't seen it, you need to go get it, because it's a great movie. It really is. It has a great message. Dr. Seuss had a lot of wisdom. Well, I had the opportunity to go see it back in March on Read Across America Day. Our whole middle school went to the movies to see it on Dr. Seuss Day. But I'm not going to ruin the movie for you, but just to catch you up to speed, there are no trees left because somebody made a really silly decision. And so now there are no trees left in the world. And instead, there are all these fake trees. And nobody even really knows what real trees are, because generations have gone by and people don't know. And so the Onceler, who's the one responsible for the non-existence of trees, he is telling this story of what happened to a young boy named Ted. And there comes a part in the movie where the Onceler says to Ted, "Here," and he gives him a seed, and he says, "This is the last one. Go do something with it." And Ted looked at the seed and he said, "Well, this is just a seed. I mean, it's this big. What is this going to do?" Because remember, he doesn't understand about trees yet. And the Onceler says to him, "It may seem small and insignificant, but it's not what it is. It's what it will become."
That's good.
We are that seed. It doesn't matter where you are in your life now. I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're a teenager. I don't care if you're an adult. We are all that seed, and there is so much more for us. It doesn't matter who we are or what we've done so far. God sees us for what we will be. He doesn't see our circumstances. He sees what we ought to be, what we can be. And so that seed, when it's planted, can grow depending on how you water it.
That's good.
Your tree is only going to be as big as you've watered it to become. But see, that whole process of even trying to plant that seed, Ted went through a lot of threshing. It wasn't easy for him to just take that seed and go plant it. He was being chased down, and people were trying to stop him from doing what he was supposed to be doing. He dealt with tribulation. He dealt with threshing. But see, we each have a purpose. The verse that's the foundation of our fine arts ministry, our team, is 1 Peter 4:10, and their shirts say that. And it says, God has given each of you a gift from his great variety of spiritual gifts. Use them well to serve one another. It doesn't say, oh, the only way that you can live for me is by fitting into this little box and working in the ministry. It doesn't mean that the only way that you can work for me is, being in front of people as a minister. No. It says that we were given a great variety of spiritual gifts. We each serve a purpose. We were each designed for a purpose. And so tonight, I don't want you to take that lightly. I don't care if you are the youngest person in this room. You were designed with a purpose. The Bible's full of stories of people who were used at a young age. David was a young shepherd boy. Samuel was called as a young boy. He heard God's voice young. Joseph dreamed of his destiny when he was about 17. Jeremiah was a young prophet. Mary birthed and raised the Son of God. She's believed to have given birth to Jesus when she was between the ages of 12 and 14. That's a pretty big responsibility. And then Jesus himself, he went to the temple when he was young and began preaching and doing God's will. Each one of you has been designed in a way that is unique for you. If you don't fulfill that calling, who will? If you don't do it, who will? Like I said, I don't want to be that person that goes through my life wondering what my life could have been. I'd rather just walk in God's blessings. So I want to leave you with 1 Timothy 4:12. I mentioned that our ministry was 412 Ministries. This is the foundation of the whole thing. Do not let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example to the believers in speech, in life, in love, in faith, and in purity. That's straight out of the Bible, guys. He says right there, whether you're young or not, you have a purpose. You have been designed with destiny. My human video team is going to come up here. They have a human video to share with you. And as they're getting set for that, I want to give you a little bit of background on it. It goes very much along with what I've talked about tonight, that every single one of us has a plan. And if you go back through the Bible and you look at all of the people that God used, they weren't all the people that were expected by society to be used. He used a lot of people that would have been the last person you would have expected to be used by God. Because see, God can use anybody. And there's a part in the human video where it says, God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And so tonight, as you're watching this, and if you don't know what human video is, this is the telling a story through action. It's to a song, and so they're telling a story, and every time they turn around, they're changing characters. So you have to pay attention. But I hope that this ministers to you tonight. And as you're listening to the story and you're watching the story that it's telling, that you'll realize that God can use anyone. So why can't he use you? Track 2.